Okay, so our first question is, when do price ceilings matter? And let's start with a thought experiment to think about this. So think about the government imposing a price ceiling on bread, a loaf of bread, a price ceiling of 50 cents. What might be some unintended consequences? And to help you think about this, here's some more specific questions, right, to kind of guide you towards some ideas about what might be some unintended consequences. So if you need to, pause this video and think about these for a second and think about what the consequences of this might be. All right, so first of all, will there be more or less bread for sale? Well, we have an issue because the price is coming down, right? Loaves of bread are typically at least $1, $1.50. So at a lower price, consumers will want to purchase more. There'll be a higher quantity demanded. But at the same time, suppliers would be willing to produce less. And so their quantity supplied would come down, and then we would have a shortage, right? So empty shelves. What about the size of a typical loaf? Well, since they're not able to sell it for as much, they might try to maintain profits by decreasing the size of the loaf. So no more giant loaves of Wonder Bread, right? What about the quality? Well, kind of similar to size, there'd probably be a reduction in quality. You wouldn't be able to get nice breads anymore for 50 cents a loaf. You'd be basically probably limited to smaller loaves of white bread, and that would be it. Or if there was nice bread, you would only be able to get a very small amount per loaf, which maybe wouldn't be a big deal. But what about the opportunity cost? So here's an interesting one. Would the opportunity cost of finding bread change? Hopefully you're thinking, yes, of course it would, right? Especially if there's shortages. If bread is hard to find, looking for bread would become sort of the implicit cost of bread. So bread lines would become more normal. So that's a problem. Now this last one's also pretty interesting. Would you buy illegal bread if you could? Well, there's a lot of things that we're seeing here in this table that are giving us plenty of incentive to potentially buy bread on a black market, right? Shortages, smaller loaves, bread that's at a lower quality, right? Potentially having to wait in bread lines. So yeah, since bread's hard to find, there definitely could be a black market for illegal bread trade, right? So as it turns out, we kind of have three different situations with price ceilings. We have one situation, which is called a non-binding price ceiling. This is when price ceilings don't matter, or they can matter, and we have a binding price ceiling. And then we'll see that there's also some long-run effects of price ceilings when they are binding, different from the short-run effects. So let's start by looking at a non-binding price ceiling. We have here an equilibrium in the bread market where loaves of bread are $1. Sounds reasonable. And then the government comes in and says, you can't charge, stores are not allowed to charge more than $2 for a loaf of bread. Well, we don't have any issue here, right? Because the price can be below the ceiling, but it can't be above the ceiling. And the equilibrium price is in a place that it can be. So no issue here, right? It's non-binding. It has no effect on the market whatsoever. But if we look at a binding price ceiling, right, that 50-cent maximum price on loaves of bread, now the equilibrium is in a place where the price cannot be. It cannot be above the ceiling. So this will have an impact, and so it is a binding price ceiling. And the first impact that you should observe is that it creates a shortage, right? Just like we talked about, empty shelves. And this is because the lower price, the price that's below equilibrium, just like we've seen from chapter 3, the price below equilibrium creates a shortage because the quantity demanded is higher than the quantity supplied. So we have empty shelves. And then, of course, because of this, there could be this leads to black markets potentially, right? And so QS is the quantity that will be produced and sold. And if a black market forms, the black market price could be as high as $2. So to figure that out, you just go from the quantity supplied at the price ceiling and then go up to the demand curve to figure out what the maximum black market price would be. And now let's look at how things might change in the long run. So if you'll recall from chapter 4 on elasticity, in the long run, our curves get flatter, right? So let me go back real quick. So this is the short run here. And then in the long run, those curves get flatter. And so with that same price ceiling, what happens is that the shortage gets bigger, right? So there you go. You see the shortage has gotten worse in the long run because our curves have become more elastic. They've become flatter. Now, interestingly, the black market price in the long run actually comes down because of this as well. So, all right, let's get a little bit of practice with these concepts. So what's going to be the effect of a non-binding price ceiling? If you need to, pause the video and think about it for a second. Okay, so the effect of a non-binding price ceiling, well, there is no effect, right? It's non-binding. So this is the situation in the first graph that we saw where price is perfectly happy being at equilibrium and it's below the price ceiling, it's below the ceiling. So there's no issue. The market operates as normal. It's as if the law doesn't even exist. Non-binding. All right, what about with a binding price ceiling? What's one function that a black market serves when we have a binding price ceiling? Again, if you need to, go ahead and pause the video and think about this. All right, this one may have been a little harder to answer, but as it turns out, the black market helps to reduce the shortage caused by the price ceiling. So it's answer A, and this is because the black market, since it's illegal, any price goes in a black market, and so it could feasibly even get back to equilibrium if people completely ignore the law and break the law entirely. But a good strategy maybe for this question is process of elimination. But in any case, answer A is the correct answer. All right, one more. So supply and demand generally become more elastic in the long run, as we learned in chapter 4. And this means that shortages caused by binding price ceilings become blank in the long run. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to. Okay, so as we just saw in that last slide, in the long run, with binding price ceilings, shortages become larger. Next, we're going to look at some real-world examples.